You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. I'm not a doctor, but I am a physiotherapist and a motorcycle enthusiast. And this is episode 139 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, proudly brought to you by Moto Australia and TechnicMotorsport.com. I'm your host, David Hogan, the Australian physiotherapist who knows the injuries and fitness needs of our sport of motocross and supercross. And we go through everything and anything moto here on the show because everything is always moto here on the AlwaysMoto network. This week's show, we're talking everything from Australian motocross rounds, AMA Supercross, Australian Hard Enduro, Australian Off-Road Enduro Championship, or the Australian Enduro Championship. They've changed the names. I always get it wrong because I've been so used to the AOSC. It's now the AEC, but there's plenty of moto talk on this week's show. Hey Moto fans, this episode is brought to you by Moto Australia, the ultimate gear and protection solution for riders seeking top-notch safety and style. From head to toe, Moto has you covered with innovative helmets, goggles, body armor, and more. Head over to leitmoto.com.au and gear up for your next ride. And don't forget our other supporters of the show here, TechnicMotorsport.com, PivotPegs.com, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167 3D Printing for our show support. And you'll hear more about these shows through different episodes in our product inspection highlights and our ad reads throughout the different podcasts. As always on the show, we need your support direct as well. We have our t-shirts available. They are $25 plus postage and handling. Email info@alwaysmoto.com. Put t-shirt order in the subject line and we'll get you those sent out with details for payment via PayPal. Now, speaking of PayPal, you can donate directly to the show via the AlwaysMoto PayPal account. And if you want to find that link and all of our show supporters, some discount codes that we've got available as well for your purchasing when you're shopping for some of these brands, follow the links in our show notes or our bio on our social pages and you'll get hooked up with all that stuff from AlwaysMoto. All right, enough with this intro talk. Let's jump straight into the show.
Hi, my name's Will Price. I ride the Australian Enduro Championship and you're listening to the AlwaysMoto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, let's kick off this main part of the show. Thanks for joining us again this week on episode 139. Now, let's start on a bit of a somber note. Let's recognise the man that we unfortunately lost in the Australian motorcycling community at round 3 in Gilman for the Oz Pro MX. Unfortunately, a bit of a favourite man amongst the pits, privateer, legend, hero, YouTube sensation. Unfortunately, Joel Evans, the number 81, the privateer Kawasaki rider, during Moto 2 had an accident, a crash that's led to him losing his life, unfortunately. News broke of that pretty much Monday morning. It was rumoured going around on Sunday afternoon that it had happened. Unfortunately, it has been confirmed. The family, his friends, people close to him, our thoughts are with you. It's been a difficult time for the Australian motorcycling community. In recent weeks, we've had another guy from the road side of things lose his life. We've had Joel Evans, and obviously in recent years, we've also had Braden Ehrenbacher lose his life at the open round at Wonthaggi. I think that was 23. I think that was 2 years ago. So, yeah, a bit of a rough run for us here. But, yeah, like we said, thoughts with the family. It's not going to be the same without Joel putting out all of his content on socials and YouTube, seeing what he's been up to. He was racing in Thailand earlier this year. He had plans for America later this year. And he's got a little one on the way. His wife is pregnant. That's a very sad part of all this story is that his little man is not going to get to meet his dad. Hopefully with all that content that Joel has put together, his little man will eventually be able to see some of what his dad was about. and actually learn who he was. In some ways, that's what's really nice about social media. But yeah, look, there's plenty of companies out there that are putting together support, financial aspects for this. There's ride days going on. If you head to Joel Evans' Instagram page that is still being operated, I believe his wife or his sister is running that. Not sure exactly who's controlling it at the moment, but they are posting things that are happening from companies like Unit, are doing discounts and then providing funding to this family. There's some local clubs around the country that are putting on ride days that are going to send financial support through. They've got like a GoFundMe going on. So please, if you can help support Joel's family and his unborn son, please go over and donate. I'm sure the family will appreciate it, and even just keep him in your thoughts. And if anything comes of, you can be there to support any one of our riders that's injured or unfortunately loses their lives. Please, that's what our moto community is about. It's about supporting one another. So if you have that opportunity to support somebody in that position, please do so. All right, let's look, don't want to just move on from that, but we do have to get to some other news that's happened throughout the motorcycling world, and obviously talk about winners and losers from races and here, there, and everywhere. It's just hard to move on from that sometimes. These things have been sort of building up over the last few weeks. There's been plenty of accidents that have sort of hit home for myself personally, and made me question a few things about our processes, in terms of safety, our rider equipment, our bikes, all those sorts of things, the regulations that are in place that are hopefully helping keep things safer and more controlled. I feel there's a lot that can be done to improve those things, and hopefully we see things continue to move. I just don't want more of these things to be occurring before anybody decides to make a change. Hopefully the things that have been happening in recent times spurs a few people on, whether that's different brands, whether that's different, board members at clubs, the organisation, the governing bodies, to make significant changes, because I feel that we can improve things significantly for the safety of our riders, and in turn make things cheaper, because obviously at the moment, especially in Australia, we're having lots of things with insurance and prices going up, because our sport is obviously quite dangerous, and we want to make sure that if we can make it safer, then ideally that would make the insurance costs less and then make things cheaper for everybody to be involved. And obviously if we're safer, more people will want to be involved riding. So look, there's plenty that can be done. Hopefully we see some changes work through. I don't expect instant things to happen, and nothing specifically regarding any of the accidents that happened recently were of an issue. Obviously accidents happen. I just want to see our sport generally be safer. All right, let's talk about the Supercross from Pittsburgh last weekend. It was the third last round of the series there in the AMA for 2025, and things were coming down to the wire, are coming down to the wire with Chase Sexton trying to chase down Cooper Webb for the 450 title there. But the winner in Pittsburgh was Cooper Webb, the points leader, who got another 3 points back out on Chase Sexton. Now with 2 rounds remaining, he has a 12-point lead in the championship. Many feel that win was what was needed from Cooper to break the streak of races and the momentum that Chase Sexton had built up, particularly after the dominating win that he had in East Rutherford the prior week, where Chase just smashed the field, 20-plus second lead over Cooper Webb. Cooper Webb wasn't really even in the conversation to win last week at East Rutherford, but this week things turned massively in the way of Cooper Webb. The whoops were a challenge, but the Webb wagon got himself through there very nicely this past week in Pittsburgh, something that Chase Sexton was unable to do this week, which was quite surprising. His whoop speed from East Rutherford definitely did not continue in Pittsburgh, whether there was just something different about the build, the soil, his confidence, his starting position, that he ended up not out in front early. All those things seemed to impact Chase Sexton, and he was not the same rider he was a week earlier. Cooper Webb got the win. Like I said, got those extra points. Now he can basically finish 3-3 in the final motos if Chase wins, and he will still be the champion. Obviously, that's probably not exactly how things will play out, and there's still a lot to go ahead here. Denver and Salt Lake remain, but it's given Cooper Webb just a tiny bit more breathing room to take this title in 2025. Now, plenty can happen: bike issues, first turn crashes, injuries in qualifying, training, whatever. So Cooper's not out of the woods here. He hasn't got the title yet, but things are looking positive for the Yamaha mounted rider there with Star Racing supporting Cooper Webb. In the 250 East Coast side of things, it's been a super tight battle here. We have three guys going at it. Seth Hammaker came into Pittsburgh with the points lead, did a perfect run through his heat race, but in the main event managed to have a bit of an issue, spun on the gate. The opening lap was absolute pinball fest for Seth Hammaker. Somehow managed to keep upright and moving, but very much at the back of the pack. And it was Tom Vial who shocked everybody and won the main event. Now, that's Tom Vial's first win of the season, despite being the points leader throughout the season at different points, and as well as being the defending East Coast champion. He hasn't had a win until now. Now, I spoke about this last week on the podcast where I felt that if Tom was able to get this championship, he had to win in Pittsburgh, and he has to win in Salt Lake City. It's not out of the question, but it was looking difficult for him given that he hadn't won a main event race this season. Now, he's done exactly what I said he needed to do so far. Can he continue on in the final round? Now, the interesting part of all this is that last year when Vial got his championship, Salt Lake City was his worst race of the season. Given that he has a 2-week break until that race to occur, there's plenty of time for him, Seth, and RJ Hampshire, who are all within championship reach. We're all within 3 points of each other to get this title. They have plenty of time to think about it. So who is the strongest mentally to manage their thoughts throughout these 2 weeks and on race day and control the narrative in their mind and perform to their maximum ability and take a win? And can they do that in an East-West showdown as well? Because obviously that's going to impact things as well. These guys need to win. They don't need to finish second because that second place doesn't give you that 3-point buffer. Tom Vial needs to get second at worst if everybody else, if there's a West Coast guy in front of him. But basically those three guys, Tom Vial, Seth Hammaker, and RJ Hampshire, need to win in Salt Lake. They need to beat Cole Davies, Joe Shimoda, Hayden Deegan, Juju Beaumer. They need to beat those guys. They can't have them in between them because that will rule out their chance of a championship. So I'm very keen to see how that one plays out and to hear how they've managed their thoughts throughout this 2-week period, because it's a long time to sit there with the nerves and the pressure that is a championship hanging over them for 2 weeks. I would have much preferred just to have the race the next week and, gone straight to it, not have too much time to think about it. But this has just placed plenty of thinking time in the mix here. Now, this week in Denver, we're going back to a West Coast race. So I'm looking forward to see if Cole Davies can continue his run of wins here and make it 3 in a row. And if he does, that'll be something well and truly helping him put himself back into championship contention. But even if he does win, the likelihood that Hayden Deegan finishes second or third is pretty high, and he will only still then put himself, down to 14 or 12 points from the championship, which still won't be really enough without Hayden having some sort of significant difficulties here. So let's just hope that we can have a steady and competitive run to the end in the West Coast. Cole can keep it somewhat interesting, and obviously don't want to see anything happen with Hayden Deegan, but just, maybe a little tip over here or there, just keep things even more interesting. Would make it great heading into that final round there. All right, Oz Pro MX, like we spoke just before about, unfortunately, the round was cut short with that accident for Joel Evans. Now, that was in Moto 2, so the final moto of the day for MX1, which was actually the final moto of the day for the event as well. So we did manage to get all the racing in for the women's class, the MX3 and the MX2 classes. Only MX1 had the one moto result scored for the round. Now, in that MX1 moto, it was Kyle Webster, the HRC Australia mounted rider, getting that win, and I predicted that would probably be the case. He's very good on that softer soil coming from those western states, from Western Australia, where we have predominantly sand tracks. Now, Kyle has had that Moto DNF at the opening round, but he is slowly clawing his way back in. Now, we only have an 8-round series here for the Oz Pro MX in 2025, and I thought that one moto might be too much for him to overcome, but we are back to a state where he is within 10 points of this championship lead. So I feel that it's anyone's game at this point. And the fact that he is winning all these motos, he's won every moto that he's finished so far in 2025, it puts me to think that Jed Beaton might just be a step behind him in overall pace. Now, Jed has been well and truly with him throughout these motos, but Kyle has been able to get the wins, which is something that Jed has been not able to do, not just this year, but last year as well. When Kyle's been on, Kyle's definitely been on. So there is something that Jed needs to find, just that little half a step, here or there, to make the difference and just get beyond Kyle. And I think a lot of that will come down to just Jed is not the greatest of starters so far through 2025. And generally from what I've seen, he's capable, but he's not a whole shot artist, if that makes sense. So if he could find that sort of whole shot capabilities, that would make things a hell of a lot better for Jed Beaton to try and take this championship. Because otherwise, as much as they tied on points last year, that was injury-induced at the final round from Kyle Webster. Kyle looks like he's going to be able to climb back into this quite easily at this pace. So we'll have to watch and see what happens in these coming rounds, because we do have another one in a couple of weeks here in May. So we'll be looking to see where that goes shortly. In the MX2 class, it was an interesting one. Brody Conley had the opening moto win pretty easily over Ryder Kingsford. But in Moto 2, Brody made a mistake and went down early in the moto and had to fight his way back through the pack. And that gave Ryder Kingsford a nice early lead and plenty of consistent laps there for Ryder. Now, that was able to be enough for him to hold on to the moto win. Brody Conley did make his way through the field and get all the way up to second, but it wasn't enough time to catch Ryder Kingsford. So the overall, they tied on points, but obviously that second moto win made the difference for the overall for Ryder Kingsford on that Monster Energy Yamaha WBR bike. So well done to Ryder Kingsford for breaking the overall streak of Brody Conley. But in all, seriousness, the points split didn't change in the championship. So Brody Conley continues to be your overall points leader with the same gap that he came into the round as he leaves with. Now, Ryder definitely is making headway towards Brody, but Brody still has definite speed advantage over Ryder Kingsford without those mistakes. So interesting to see how this plays out, if Ryder can find any more pace over the next few weeks before the following round, because he's going to need to do something to get in front of Brody Conley, because Brody just definitely has just a flow and a consistency about him that's been running now for quite a while, all the way through last season and into this year's championships, that Brody is just the man to beat. So, but it's good to see that we have battles both now with Kingsford and Conley, Webster and Beaton. Things are looking good. We've also got the battles between Kai Woods in MX3 and Caden Kingsford, Ryder's younger brother, in MX3. And obviously Charlie Canning just killing things in the MXW for the women's class. But ProMX is definitely something worth watching, and you can watch it in the international viewers as well, so check that out. Obviously, Australian viewers, you're watching it through SBS Sports and on their on-demand platform, which is fantastic. It's been great. I will say that their highlights package from this weekend that was on YouTube was a bit weirdly edited, but anyway, it's nice to have these things electronically available for us to be watching regularly here in Australia and internationally, just giving that exposure all the way around for our riders. Now, these riders, they're all on factory teams here in Australia. Not really. They're just a couple of them are only on some Yamaha and Honda and Cowie aren't too bad, the teams, but everybody else is sort of just a bit of a privateer effort. But factory teams from Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha, they have something in common, and they use either KYB or Showa suspension, and they service them with genuine parts. Now, KYB and Showa, they have an Australian distributor, and that is Technic Motorsport in Sydney. Now, why would you use non-genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumables when genuine parts are available, perform better, and are usually only a day away? TechnicMotorsport.com is your place to go to for these genuine KYB and Showa components. From seals to fork tubes to internal individual components, as well as A-kit suspension sets for KYB and Showa. TechnicMotorsport.com has it all. Use the Find My Bike tool to see the compatible parts, and new parts are always being added. So there's plenty more to check out. Don't just check it out once. Go back multiple times. There's stuff being added all the time. If you're not in Australia, that's okay. TechnicMotorsport.com, it has a currency converter on the website. They have a shipping calculator, and they ship daily with DHL to most countries. So check out technicmotorsport.com for all your suspension needs. All right, we are going to take a quick break here on the Always Moto podcast. We'll be back with more.
I'm Brighton Carroll, riding for Team TCD, and you're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, we're back on the Always Moto podcast. We are going to just quickly touch into the Australian Hard Enduro Championship that we spoke about last week on the show with our man Anthony Wakem from Finance My Bike. Now, Anthony was going to join us this week. We've just, between myself, with my schedule, trying to get out to Dubbo for the state titles, do the commentary. Anthony's a little bit under the weather. He's down in Victoria for the Vic Off-Road Championship this weekend. He seems to have been just moving himself around in Victoria the last few weeks. He's been all over there for the events recently. So he's down there. He's not doing so great. He's got to get himself back together for this weekend for the racing tomorrow. So we're just giving him a break. We're going to talk about it properly next week's podcast, but we'll just touch on it a little bit here. So the Kosciuszko Killer was last weekend down there in Victoria. Very dusty, dry event. Unfortunately, the weather, we sort of mentioned whether it would rain, it might help it, but it didn't by the sounds of it. And from the images I saw, very, very dry. Always makes cross-country off-road events, as much as this is a hard enduro, still sort of a cross-country format, makes it very, very difficult to ride. Vision is obviously key in these events, and if you can't see the guy in front of you, let alone the obstacles, particularly when they're big nasty rocks or trees, makes it quite difficult. But everyone got through reasonably well. The winners for the weekend, first place on the weekend was Ruben Chadwick. Second was Wade Ibrahim. And third was last year's champion, Anthony Solar. So those guys got off to a reasonable start in the championship. It's 5 rounds this year, so they've got a few more things to go. Our man Anthony got himself 14th out of 44, I believe it was, in the over 40s class, which is no mean feat. So well done to Anthony on that, but we'll check in with him, like I said, next week. So the next round of the Australian Hard Enduro Championship is going to be in Marumba. It's called the Marumba Madness. It's in ESK, Queensland, on June 14th, 15th. So Anthony's going to have a busy couple of weeks coming up here. Our usual Where's Anthony next? Well, obviously he's in Vic Off-Roads this week. I believe the Fink. He's got a couple of weeks yet. He's going to be Maitland the week after, next week, if everything goes well there. So we'll be up with me. Then he's all over the place. We'll find out more from him next time. But yeah, just a little quick touch on the Australian Hard Enduro Championship. And obviously we'll catch up with Anthony from Finance My Bike on our next show. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with our emergency department segment for the AMA Supercross.
I'm Caleb Gourlay, and you're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, let's head into the emergency department to get the updates on the injuries and the rider status for this weekend's Supercross in the AMA. The emergency department. All the injuries, all the gory details, and when they'll be back on track. It's the list you really don't want to be on. You do not want to be on this list. Sorry, I just had a space out moment there because I was reading an update on Luke Neese, which we'll get to here shortly, as part of our ongoing updates here on the emergency department for Always Moto. Now, things to note, straight off the bat, things to note. This weekend for Denver, Drew Adams, the Pro Circuit Kawasaki rookie, is back. Have to say that's a bit odd because I felt like after he missed the initial couple of West Coast rounds from a couple of weeks back, when they were at Philadelphia for the showdown, when they were at Seattle for back at end of March there, those were rounds that I thought Drew would have been able to get back to after his broken collarbone. But when he missed those rounds, I figured they were just going to keep him out, get him ready for a full tilt at the Pro Motocross Series. But the announcement this week from the team that he was back for this round and for Salt Lake sort of confused me. I'm not sure why you would send out the rookie to, go and do these races. He's only done a handful of, Supercross Futures, now next races. Last year, he ended up doing 1.5, or not even probably a half, 1.25 Supercrosses as a pro. So I'm not sure why the need to get him out here and do these. You'd have plenty of time to do a full Supercross prep next year for next year's season. I would have tried to keep him healthy, ready for Pro Motocross, but everybody's saying to me that I've posted about on X and Instagram, race is race. And I agree. And normally I want people to come back. This one's a bit different given the situation of where he's at in his career and the fact of points for like super motocross qualifying points, playoff points. Not sure that it's necessary given that you'll have plenty of time to get plenty of points in the outdoors. So it's a bit confusing. I'm not sure on that one. I'm not sure how I feel. I want him there, but I don't want him there, if that makes sense. So, look, hopefully nothing happens. But if he does pick up another injury in one of these 2 rounds, I think it will be viewed as a very bad mistake on the part of Kawasaki and Pro Circuit. But if he goes well and gets a podium, I'll look like an idiot. So let's see which one of the 2 that it ends up being. I'm happy to be called the idiot if that's the case. But I don't really want to gloat if he does get an injury, because that's not how this should go. That's not what this is about here. I'm not looking for people to get injured so I've got something to talk about. That's not the case. I'm just reporting on what's happened, obviously trying to provide information, and I don't want to be seen as that guy that, is putting the mockers on people, because that's not what it's about. Let's hope Drew Adams gets a podium in this, one of these final rounds and shows people what he's capable of. That would be cool, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong that it wasn't necessarily a good idea. So let's see how that goes. Matty Jorgensen was back last week in Pittsburgh. I didn't realize that was happening, but he was back filling in for his boss at Wildcat Gas there, Lorenzo Lacurcio. We mentioned that Lorenzo was out with a fractured leg. Didn't realize the team was going to be ready to send a fill-in, and I didn't realize that Matty was ready. He had a preseason wrist fracture. I thought he was out for quite some time. Obviously he was, but then he's good enough to be back on the bike. So awesome to have Matty Jorgensen back for that Gas Wildcat team. He's obviously going to be racing outdoors with the team as well as Lorenzo. Lorenzo's going to be trying to get himself ready for the outdoors here with that leg. He should be good to go by the time. We're only 3 weeks away from Pro Motocross, by the way. So not too long to go. We don't want to be getting any injuries at this point because you're going to miss out on the beginning of motocross season. So good to see that Matty Jorgensen was back out there getting some gate drops ahead of Pro Motocross. TJ Albright's an interesting one for us, guys and girls. He is the man we talked about last week that got a bucket handle meniscus tear in his knee and had surgery on it. Now, the information is that TJ is going to be back for the West Coast 250 series in Denver this week, despite the fact he's had that surgery probably only 2 weeks or so ago, which for me is not enough time for that to be recovered and healed, but maybe for him it is. And as we keep saying here, if you have access to the right rehab and are dedicated to it, taking the right supplements, treating your body well with rest, sleep, nutrition, and doing the right movement management through rehab exercises, you can get these things to happen a lot faster. Still, it just seems quick. But TJ, look, I've messaged him. I haven't heard back from him directly. He's been on our show before. Just haven't heard in time for this update at this point. I expect him to be on the line. And that's going to be awesome, but he might be a little bit ginger and probably keeping that knee and that foot on that leg up on the peg if he can, just to sort of protect it a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, now before we get to a few of the injuries from last week and who's out for this week in Denver, Cruise Tune. Yep, that's a name in motocross and off-road performance suspension parts. Yes, Cruise Tune. From lowering links to valving kits, bladder conversions, lift kits for 65cc races, and a range of adventure and road lowering kits, they are based in Melbourne, Australia. Now, Cruise Tune has a full CNC manufacturing facility, and the full range of Cruise Tune parts are available on technicmotorsport.com. That website, it's got everything. Now, they hold all those Cruise Tune parts in stock, and they are available for same-day dispatch. They overnight to almost anywhere in Australia, and they obviously do international shipping as well with DHL. Competitive dealer pricing is available. Don't wait for your Cruise Tune parts. Get them fast from technicmotorsport.com. All right, out for Denver. Obviously, he missed last week in Pittsburgh as well, but it was a late announcement. Justin Barsha, his crash in Rutherford in the whoops caused him to have a knee injury. Now, no details on what was injured in the knee itself during that crash, but if you watch that crash back, he goes over the bars and he lands on his feet heavily. And I dare say he's probably got a bone bruise within the knee joint there. If it's not that, because they've said, sort of indicated in his PR that he'd be back for outdoors, that's all it's got to be. Because if there's anything else like a meniscus or he's done his ACL, those things take a lot longer than that to get back to outdoors. So let's hope it's just the bone bruise. I suspect it is. And he just didn't need to take the risk to, put that knee under any load for the next few weeks, with Pro Motocross being not too far away. And he's not in the championship for, any significant position in the Supercross series for Justin at this stage after a bit of a rough start to the season. So it was probably a good move from his part and the history of last year with his injuries, maybe he's just aggravated that a bit further because he had a few dramas there last year with injuries as well. So he's just taking that time to be a bit smart there, which is good. Deegan Hepp, unfortunately, broke his left wrist in a heat in Pittsburgh. He completed surgery already on the Sunday, which was awesome timing. You know, we talk about this, getting things done quickly helps your recovery process. So he's got that done quickly. He's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks likely. Probably going to miss the first round to 3 of Pro Motocross before he'll be back in action. Now, Luke Neese, our mate here at Always Moto Podcast, he's been on quite a few times. Unfortunately, he's had a bit of a bang around effort in Pittsburgh, and he won't be racing the final round in Salt Lake, unfortunately. No details I've been able to get just yet. I'm trying to get an update from him. Hopefully everything's a-okay, but he will be back for some outdoors, he said here in his update on his social pages. So we'll check out more from Luke as we have it. We'll bring it here to you on the show. Derek Leatherman, a privateer Yamaha rider, unfortunately in East Rutherford, broke both wrists. Now, he had managed to case a jump. He broke both of them at the same time, which is never good. It's just one of those things that who's wiping your butt, who's feeding you, who's cleaning you, who's holding you, you know what, while you need to take a piss. These are the concerns that happen when you break both wrists, and he's had surgery on both. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little longer given it's 2. So just, let's see how that goes. It's an unfortunate situation for Derek Leatherman. Marcus Phelps, the South African on the Dirt Bike Depot KTM, got a concussion and a herniated disc in his spine in East Rutherford, and he will be out until the outdoors. So that is the updates from the emergency department. We will be back with some more, and obviously more on our YouTube channels. We haven't been a bit slack here. We've been running out of time in the weeks to get our YouTube up to date. But we'll be back with those shortly here, and we'll be doing some more stuff with our YouTube channel. We'll be doing some post-race live updates from Pro Motocross. We've done our media application yesterday, waiting on our approval for that. But we are going to be at Southwick, Redbud, Millville, and Washougal this year. So we'll be getting some interesting content for you all. So check out the podcast and the YouTube from those things as the season rolls on. All right, let's take a break here on the Always Moto podcast. We're going to be back with our viewing times and weather updates ahead of this weekend's racing.
Hey, it's Jake Runkles, and you're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, thanks for sticking around on the Always Moto podcast. Let's check out the viewing times for this week's round of the AMA Supercross for Denver this weekend. Obviously, we're watching this through the Super Motocross video pass for the international viewers, and this app is working fantastic this year, getting us plenty of coverage with Race Day Live and the main events all being live through the app. It's perfect to be watching it on your phone or casting it through your TV, so check that out. Now, time-wise, Race Day Live this weekend for round 16 in Denver. It is kicking off Eastern Australian time at 3 a.m., so nice and early on Sunday morning. Main race coverage program is starting off at 9 a.m. Sunday morning, so check those out. Now, for other TV coverage-wise, the other thing you could be watching at the same time across the weekend from Saturday morning, about 8:30 in the morning, we're going to be broadcasting live the New South Wales Motocross State Titles. I'll be your commentator on that with another guy there working with us as well. So we're going to be on the New South Wales. If you head to the New South Wales Motocross State Titles Facebook page, you'll find their live feed from their YouTube channel. But please subscribe to their YouTube channel so you can check that out across the day. So that'll be running from about 8:30 in the morning till about 4 o'clock, 4:30, depending on what time the last moto finishes in the afternoon there. So plenty to watch moto-wise if you're a moto fan and you don't have much to do, because it's probably going to be raining where you are, because it's raining where I am right now on the east coast of Australia. So most things have been cancelled already here on the east coast of Australia due to the weather situation. But yeah, plenty to watch in terms of moto and super motocross and New South Wales Motocross State Titles. Now, bike riding, we need foot pegs on our bikes to be getting around the track easily, because it's a bit hard without pegs. But if you want to upgrade your pegs, maybe you just want something a bit more sturdy, a bit more sexy looking, a bit more functional, then you need pivot pegs. Pivot pegs are super wide. They have a pivoting action to help you move around on the bike. That reduces the wear of your boot soles actually, and it improves your leg positioning on your bike throughout your ride. Head over to Pivot Pegs with a Z .com and get yourself some. Now they're available for all motocross bikes and adventure bikes, so check it out if you're an adventure bike rider as well. Now weather-wise this weekend for Denver and that Supercross, it's going to be sunny, about 8 to 24 degrees Celsius. There might be a little wind in that stadium as well. Denver is also a bit windy up there. It's also known as the Mile High City, so altitude talk is going to happen across this coverage. They're going to beat it to death. I doubt and have no doubt about that. It's difficult, yes, for the riders because obviously there's less oxygen content in the air, meaning that your body has to work harder to absorb the oxygen to fuel your muscles to get that red blood cells working around, because obviously red blood cells require oxygen attached to them to feed it to the muscles to allow them to function at an appropriate rate. Because if they don't, they then build up lactic acid quicker, which then slows your ability to continue to perform at an increasing level. You just start to reduce off the ability to perform well with the lack of oxygen. So you're going to hear that on the coverage. I have no doubt about it, but it will not be that big of a factor for most people. Yes, you might have a little bit down on horsepower, but everyone's dealing with the same situation. So we're going to hear that a bit for Denver. Now for me, heading out to Dubbo, the weather looks okay. Again, sunny, about same sort of temp ranges, probably somewhere in that 10 to 20 range. Ideally, we're further west inland, so we should be avoiding these east coast showers that that are happening at the moment as we speak. But we talked about earlier in the show, we're going to talk about here just now some notable events that are coming up. There is meant to be also a Hastings Valley sprint round this weekend near Port Macquarie on the east coast of New South Wales. But given this weather, I'm not sure if they're going to get this one in. They've already postponed the original first round from last month. This one's not getting much better weather as it is either, so I'm not sure how that's going to go, if they're going to go ahead with it or not. But check their Facebook page out to see if the weather ends up impacting their event or not. I would have loved to have been at this one riding it, but I'm also doing this coverage for the state titles with Dubbo, so I can only be in one place at one time, unfortunately. But like I said, that's happening this weekend. So 2 major events happening in the world of motorcycle racing, off-road motorcycle racing in New South Wales this weekend. So awesome to see that. Other notable events coming up, New South Wales Off-Road Championship is back. Round 3 and 4 are going to be at Maitland next weekend. So that's the 10th and 11th of May. Keep an eye on their Facebook page for any updates on that. Armidale Northern Inland Sprint Series in New South Wales is going to be happening on May 18th. It's a single day event happening, run by the club there, Armidale Motorcycle Club at Toryburn. So check that out. It's an awesome event. I love that one. I'll be there for that one riding. The next round of the Australian Enduro Championship is happening at Tintinara in South Australia on the 31st of May and the 1st of June. So check that out as well. Obviously, next weekend as well is the final round of the Supercross Championship in Salt Lake City. We'll talk about that more next week. So plenty of events happening around the country, around the world. Obviously, we've got another motocross GP, MXGP round happening this weekend as well. And that is occurring in, where are we at? We are, I believe we're in, what's it called? I can't even pronounce it. They've moved this calendar around that I've got here. I'll have to check that one out. But there is a round happening. I know that because Tim Geiser has pulled out of that round. That dislocated shoulder that he had happen at the MXGP of Switzerland 2 weeks ago, whatever that was, has not recovered well enough. He was originally earlier this week announced as riding. He must have had a day on the bike and decided it was not a good idea. He is out for this next round. Aguada, that's the round. So he will not be in Aguada with the team, and they'll be down to 3 riders for that HRC Honda in MXGP. We're interested to see how that plays out, because if he misses more than a couple of rounds here, he's going to be just out of the championship, and who will be stepping up into that role? And then if he does sort of come back 50%, 60%, maybe a bit better, can he get enough points to regain that? And similarly, then does that then open the door for Jeffrey Hurlings, who missed the opening couple of rounds, to then build into his season and maybe get a sneaky chance at this championship later on as well? That one's an interesting one. I'm curious to see how this championship plays out, because there's plenty of rounds to go. There's 20 rounds this year, and they're only up to round 7. So things to watch in MXGP. Plenty of racing ahead in that one. All right, that's the show this week. Thanks for listening, guys and girls. Don't forget to send us those T-shirt orders. We need to sell a few more of these shirts. We've got plenty of them in stock here, so please email info@alwaysmoto.com to purchase yours. We'll send through details and we'll get those shirts out to you ASAP. Payments via PayPal. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things moto. Search Always Moto, follow and subscribe. Please rate us on your podcast app. 5 stars would be appreciated. Check out our written articles over on fullnoise.com.au. But that's it for another show. Thanks to Elite Moto Australia, technicmotorsport.com, pivotpegs.com, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167 3D Printing for the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done and letting me go out all by myself at the Dubbo to do the motocross commentating. And we will see you at the track.